All right, March 24th, and this is JPEG to RAW, show number 140. And tonight we have Robert Cornelius coming, who's an amazing Photoshop guru. I'm going to play, we got images streaming behind me. We'll stream some images here in a little bit. We'll also, I think you have a video out on YouTube I'm going to play as we're talking to that goes at real time. It's not speeded up.
Yeah, right. No way.
It's not, it's just, he's just that good.
Just so speedy.
He's just that good. We'll play it as we talk a little bit later. But Robert, I want to welcome you to JPEG to RAW. And Tim and I were just talking earlier how we've been admiring your photos out on Flickr and everywhere else. Just amazing photos. But, you know, a lot of your work is done after the fact too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably more of the work, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, I don't know how much time you spend on each image. But I imagine, I think I read somewhere sometimes it's 40 to 50 hours.
Yeah, that's probably the most popular question I get is how long does that take you? And it's so hard for me to answer because I tend to work in a bunch of chunks and it's like way too much time. But
yeah, and so what I was doing was I was saying, okay, I think I got 26 photos. You'll see, we'll stream some of them tonight. So I only got 26 of them. You have a lot more than that. And I said, well, you know, I got to redo the math now. But if the images we're watching tonight, we're only going to spend about an hour talking tonight, and you only have a few seconds each image as it comes up. But, you know, if you spent, let's say average on 40 hours on each image, 40 times 26.
Yeah, 40 is a long one, but.
Well, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt here. You may have to go back. I mean, we're looking at well over 1,000 hours of work here in the short span that we're looking at stuff. And that just, you know, just keep that in mind, and not you, us, keep that in mind as we watch this. The amount of work and detail that goes into these images is just amazing. And the time commitment. But before we get too far into that, how did you get into doing these photos? Where did you begin with this?
Well, I actually, when I started photography, I mean, it was always sort of a hobby. I actually went to film school, so I was always into creating images, but moving images for a while there. But then right after college, I bought my first DSLR and was just taking pictures for fun. And, you know, took a picture of, like, I did a photo shoot for my sister just to try out some lights and do some things. And one of her friends saw that and said, "Oh, those are so great. Could you take my picture?" And I said, "Oh, sure." And it just sort of, you know, unfolded from there until I was having to start charging people and, you know, keeping a calendar of who was when, and sort of accidentally started a portrait business, which for a while was fun and exciting, but I really wanted to be photoshopping everything like crazy. But I had, you know, people going, "Oh, well, that's just photoshopped," or, you know, and I couldn't do these outlandish things because people just wanted a picture of themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, they're looking for a headshot for a family portrait. So, you know, for a while I was dialing it back and kind of got burnt out on that. And then, you know, once I decided this is what I want to do, I just, you know, flopped over and started doing all the composites.
Because because the portrait business was kind of holding back your creativity, and if all I'm going to be doing is shooting, I really want to do more than just the shooting.
Yeah, I mean, I was photoshopping, but it was like sneaky photoshopping where you couldn't quite tell anything was done, but it looked really good. Yeah, you know, so I wanted to be in your face photoshopping.
And so then how did you make the leap from that to being able to do these?
Well, I actually got a job at a photography studio where I'm actually there right now. I'm in my office. Okay. And suddenly had access to every piece of equipment I ever dreamed of. And, you know, this great group of other photographers and creative people that I could bounce ideas off of. And I learned so much in the first year of working here that, you know, my work just completely exploded in a whole other direction.
Yeah, I think that's amazing when you can find something that you love personally that you can also do for work. Yeah, they kind of feed off each other. You get your value at your company probably increases because you love doing this, and you go home and do it. And it makes you better at work, and then your work makes you better at home.
Yeah, well, it's funny because the whole work and home thing are actually the same place. I live upstairs, so which is really handy because whenever I come up with a random idea and I'm like, I'm itching to shoot, I have to shoot something right now, you know, I can just run downstairs and shoot it.
I guess you can't make, you know, snow days don't count because you just
don't get any snow days, no. And it's the worst when everyone else gets a snow day and I'm just here working.
The only one. We know Robert can make it.
Yep, I'll be there.
All right. So you got into it from that, and then now you doing a lot of these. I know you do them. You do some stuff for work. Do you doing these? The ones that we're watching now. Are people paying you to do those? Or are you just doing them to build a portfolio? What
Some
is?
of them, mostly, I mean, like what I do at work is 100 times different than what I do in my personal work. Like everything you're seeing behind you, I've done in my free time,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of it is just I have an idea, I want to shoot it, or I want to try a technique, or we got a new light that I want to play with, or whatever it is. I'm just playing around, and then I make the money later, usually either by selling it for a book cover or but a few times someone has seen one of my works and gone, oh, can you do this? And I'll get a commission piece to make something with someone.
So you sell it for a book cover. How are they finding you?
I'm not sure how they found me. The one, it's actually a fantasy novel in Thailand, I think,
Huh.
that the main character creates lightning with his hands.
Yeah.
And I have the one picture, which I saw cycle through a bit ago,
Yeah.
that they were like, oh my gosh, this is my main character. Like, this is how he's described. This is so awesome. Can we, use this for a book? And so we, worked out a usage price and all that. And
Well, we'll have the link in the show notes, but you have a Flickr account.
mm-hmm.
And I've been, I know a number of photographers. I've even been approached. What was funny is I was approached by a company that's about 2 miles from me,
Mm-hmm.
Well, how does that work? They don't know where I live.
Yeah.
They're 2 miles from me. But so maybe they were looking through your Flickr account and found your work there. Or I know you have a blog that is.
Yeah, I
is
think it
looked
was
at.
probably through my blog, because that's where most of my traffic and stuff comes from usually.
Okay. Now, your work is so creative. What's your background before you got into photography? Do you have an art background or anything like that? Because
Yeah,
I look at this, and even if I had the Photoshop skills, I wouldn't have the creativity to do it.
Yeah, I've always been, the art kid. Any chance I have to create, I'll definitely grab hold of that and run with it. When I was growing up, I actually lived in middle of nowhere, Ohio,
Okay.
and my family owned and operated a pizza shop. And so I spent a lot of days sitting at a booth drawing on the back of a waitress pad,
Okay.
and just, never stopped drawing. And then I always had these ideas in my head, and I would consider myself a fairly, good artist. Like, I can draw fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
But I always wanted to do this like crazy, almost hyper-realistic kind of painterly thing that I just couldn't quite achieve with paints or pencil or whatever. And then once I discovered Photoshop, it was like, oh, this. That's what I've been trying to do. And it's really exciting now to be able to come up with an idea in my head and, have this thing I'm picturing and be able to make it almost exactly as I see it in my head. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, and so how did you develop your Photoshop skills? Because I'm going to go ahead and play this, and people will just watch as we go. And remember, this is real time.
Mm-hmm.
That you can't see it behind me yet, but
Right.
they'll see it here in a live show. This is real time. He just moves this fast. This is the editing, I think, of the woman who is in the ocean.
Yeah, that's my wife, actually.
That's your wife, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in the ocean. Okay. So how did you, obviously this is speeded up a little bit.
Yeah, I hope everyone knows I cannot work that fast.
But
wish.
still, yeah, I mean, but still, just watching it and how you bend everything, and it's amazing. How did you develop these skills like this?
Lots and lots and lots of hours of doing it. I mean, I started photoshopping in high school. I took a introduction to computer media or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but one of the chunks of the class was learning Photoshop, and I immediately was like, oh, this is so awesome. And so I would go home and watch YouTube and just find tutorials everywhere I could and learn new things and, try stuff on my own. And by the end of the class, I was literally teaching the teacher things. Because she was just learning it and teaching it to us, but she'd walk by my computer and go, whoa, how'd you do that? And I'm like, oh, come here, I'll show you. And we actually had one of the computers hooked up to the display that would project up on the wall, and she just had me start sitting at that computer. So my work was up for everyone to watch up on the wall in front of the class. So, but anyway, I I fell in love with it then, and got the program myself and started playing with it at home. And it was always just sort of a hobby. And then once I landed this job, which was also sort of an accident because I was actually working on a feature film that I got hooked up with through a friend of mine I went to college with, who was working with the company I'm working with now. We also shoot, commercials and movies and stuff and have all that equipment, but we don't actually have a huge crew. So whenever there is a commercial or a movie we have to shoot, we just have to find people and, bring in people to work with us. So my boss had said, to my friend, do you know anyone from college who could come in and help on this movie? And he contacted me and said, if you can be here in 2 days, you're hired. And I was like, sure, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So the first day on the movie, the set photographers showed up in windbreaker pants.
Oh my gosh.
And so they're like, hey, dude, you cannot move when we're rolling because we can hear you on the mics. And he was a big jerk. And they fired him the first day.
Wow.
And came down breakfast the next morning and said, does anyone have a camera and any sort of experience that can be our set photographer? Because we need one and we don't have one. And I was like, oh, I brought my camera. Here's my website. And they said, cool, you're hired, but you still have to do your other job. So I was working as a grip, setting up lighting and doing all that. And also photography. So they started calling me the griptographer, which was kind of fun. And then I guess my boss just took a liking to me and I started working freelance for him for a bit, photoshopping backgrounds and coming up with things to use in composites for them. And then he started having me come down for, we have this big project we're finishing. Can you come down and help us? It's crunch time, finish this book. And I was there for like 2 days and he said, look, we have an apartment upstairs. You can just live up there. Can you move here? You have a job. And I said, yeah, why not? And so now I Photoshop all day long and before work and on my lunch break and after work. So, a lot of hours.
Yeah. So that makes me think of a couple of questions. I hope I remember the second one. The first one is, what does a movie set photographer do? I mean, you taking just photos of the imagine quiet on set, like the guy with the parachute pants or whatever he had on.
Yeah.
you can't be snapping away with a loud camera either. Are you waiting for like when they're not filming and you're going to take pictures of the actors and director just?
Yeah, it's stuff to use. You pictures of the whole wide scene with all the lights and the camera on the dolly and the actors and the, having an intense conversation with the director or, just people grouped together smiling of the crew and, just for everyone to have and, for the director to use for things and, just sort of like a documentary still images.
Okay. These are images that like at the end of the movie, the cast and the director may get, but us as public may not see most of them.
Right. Yeah. They get used for some, promotional things.
But that's pretty cool knowing that the actors have these images of yours.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was really fun because it was a pool movie. It's called Nine Ball. And it was all about like shooting pool. And Jennifer Beretta, who's number 2 in the world or something. And also I'm terrible and blanking on her name, but the Black Widow, who is like the number 1 pool star, were in this movie. And so I'll randomly see them on TV and be like, oh, I know her.
Yeah, I've actually seen them on TV now that you mentioned their names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I've had, one of them use one of my pictures as their profile picture before that I took on set. And was like, oh, I did that. So that's kind of cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So my second question is, you spend all this time in Photoshop at work.
Right.
You spend a lot of it, the question out in chat, and I think we answered it before, but I'll go ahead and say it again. On the more in detailed ones, I think you spend 40 to 50 hours on these, so they can take a while.
It's really hard to tell because a lot of times, like I come into work at least half an hour early, and I'll open up whatever project I'm working on and Photoshop right up until work. And then as soon as my lunch break hits, I grab my sandwich or whatever, and I'm right back on my computer reopening my piece, and I work on it for half an hour, close it. And then again, after work, maybe after dinner, I'll take some time and, work further, which is really great because I get fresh eyes on it a lot of times. So I'll kind of open it, see something and go, oh, I don't like that. I'll fix this and this and, close it and keep working.
I can see like a new Betty Ford type center thing open for Photoshop addicts.
Yeah.
No, my question.
I have a problem and I'm okay with it.
My question is going to be, your wife who has her own successful blog, which is Cakes Over Steaks. Did I say that right?
No, Cake Over Steak.
Cake Over Steak.
Yeah.
We can put that in the show notes too for her.
Yeah.
She has a successful blog too, so she's busy, and you got all this going on. How do you balance the work-life thing there? That if you're drawn, I can imagine you get into an image and you look up and 5 hours has passed by, you didn't even realize it.
Yeah, that can definitely happen.
And you go, well, I thought you were sitting right there, and she's been asleep for 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of combining things and scheduling things. I am not the best scheduler of things, but she's really on top of it. So, anytime anything comes up, I'm like, Sarah, what do we have going on this time? At this date for this. And it was hard for a while because I was actually she has a food blog for anyone who doesn't know. If you couldn't tell from the title, Cake Over Steak, I was taking all of her pictures, which was kind of fun to be doing these food pictures, which are way different from what I'm doing. But then we were having problems where I wanted to go work on my picture and she needed to do this photo shoot. And so I've actually been teaching her, and she's since started doing her own photos, and I just sort of help her a bit, with settings and that when she needs. But yeah, balancing the whole work-life thing is a lot of combining things. So, I make it to the gym almost every day, but I also treat that as my concept time. So while I'm running or doing whatever, I kind of can mindlessly run through my brain and, come up with ideas, think about ideas I've had and, flesh them out, and constantly taking notes in my phone and doing all that, and then we'll do things like, we'll cook together. So we have some time to talk and, hang out, discuss our day, usually talk about whatever podcast we listen to that day. And, so we see each other and then we'll sit and eat, and where most people spend time in the evening watching television of some sort, that's our TV time. So we'll watch one episode of something or one movie or half of a movie if time doesn't allow. And so we'll eat, watch something. So it's two birds, one stone. We've had our entertainment, and then it's like, okay, back to work. And we're both back at our computers working on our, respective blogs. So it's a little crazy, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm interested in the thing you said about when you're running or you're at the gym, and that's a time when you can be creative. I imagine a lot of us have different times when we think really good, whatever that thing we're doing is. I'm interested in how you said you keep notes in your phone. Are you dictating them? Do you have an app that you do that with?
It's just the Notes app. an iPhone. And running is seriously where most of my ideas come from. And most pictures, I can look up the note and tell you what it says. And it's usually very fragmented, like the fireball one. It's like guy jumping, fireballs, side profile, black pants or something like that. And most people would read it and be like, what's he talking about? But I just write enough to remember what I was picturing.
So you're actually physically writing it then in a note or typing it or something?
Yeah, I'll type it in.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of people who use Evernote or OneNote or something like that, so you can write a note. And I think maybe some of them even let you do an audio note, but some way to jog your memory.
Yeah, like say it and it writes it down. But actually, it's really great to have, because then whenever I do have an opportunity to shoot, or I'm at one of these meetups and it's like, oh, I have all these people around and everyone's got props, and what do I do? What do I shoot? I could do so many things. I'll pop open my thing. I don't know if this will probably not pick it up. There it is, but it's like lots and lots.
I can see. I can't read any of it, but I can see words. Yes,
there's a lot of. It's still going.
So it's one continuous note.
I just keep adding to the note in like a new paragraph for each. Each idea, and then I'll go back later and read through and see what I want to shoot.
Do you think splitting up your time on those editing, like you said you did, but in the early morning before work, at lunch, after work, do you find that a hindrance or a benefit? Because it gives you an opportunity to say, wow, you know what, maybe I want to change it some other way. Or do you find yourself, because sometimes I think, and maybe I'm not doing what you do, and I think about what I do with work and maybe an Excel project, it's like, all right, now where was I? And it takes me 15 minutes just to figure out where I was. Or do you see that as
yes and no, a bit of both. I do love that I constantly am getting fresh eyes on it. So I'll pop it open and immediately you'll see something wrong or something you want to fix.
Right.
But I do sometimes, you know, if I only have 20 minutes or half an hour after work, I'm like, I'll just wait until I have a chunk of time. Because sometimes it does, you kind of get into a flow and you have to push things around for 20 minutes before you're like knowing your trajectory and what you want to do to the picture. But then on the flip side, after I've worked for 2 or 3 hours, your eyes are so used to it that like maybe there's something really wrong with it and the color's totally off, but you've been looking at it and slowly seeing it change for so long that you can't really tell that it's wrong until you've closed it and opened it again and go, oh, because I think
what did I do? Right.
Way too saturated or whatever it is. So
you don't see a problem then going to doing other work in Photoshop. I would think my mind would wander, say, wow, you know what? I need to make a change. I'm assuming that has to happen once in a while. Say, oh, you know what? I need to make that change. And would you leave a note for yourself? Say, I'm making this change, or you just
usually,
mentally
I usually remember. I mean, most times I'll open it, I'll see something, I'll fix it. And then maybe I'll see something and go, oh, I want to do more shading on her face. And then I usually just pop it open and go, oh yeah, I was going to do more shading on her face, and just sort of dive back in.
And you do all this in Lightroom, right?
Yeah, everything's in Lightroom. Yeah, no layers. No layers.
So, you know, I don't want to get too technical here, but I imagine you use a lot of layers in this, and so you probably have a decent system with a lot of RAM.
Yeah.
To handle all this. Mm-hmm. Where do anything in Photoshop? Are you using the latest Photoshop? Are you part of Creative Cloud and have the latest one?
Yep. Anything
in Photoshop where you say, "Wow, I really wish they would do this," or "I wish this would be improved," or anything like that, where you feel that I can go a little bit further, but I need this tool?
I mean, it's a lot. Nothing that would make things go further. There's a lot of tiny little things that I'm like, why doesn't this do this? This would be so much smoother. You know, just little things like I use the patch tool a lot, you know, to clone out a blemish or whatever wrinkle I don't like. Where for all those who don't know, I don't know where your audience is technically, where you can circle a piece, you know, drag it over to this flat piece of fabric and it'll flatten it out.
Right.
But sometimes I want to feather the edge of that selection. Yeah. And normally on any selection tool, you can right click and then you can feather. Mm-hmm. But on the patch tool, you can't. I'm like, why isn't there feather in this right click menu? So I'll like make my selection, go back to the marquee tool, feather by 5 pixels, go back to the patch tool, and then patch it. So it's like little things like that. Where I'm like, I wish I could just feather this right here.
So basically things that would actually make it faster for you or smoother.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't think I've ever run into something that I couldn't do and I wished Photoshop would. Yeah. Like I've always said, I can achieve anything in Photoshop if you give me enough time.
So anything in Photoshop that is your favorite, or you use such a variety of stuff that there really is no favorite?
Like a tool that's my favorite?
Yeah.
Or, that's a hard one. I mean, I love all of them. I probably, if I had to narrow it down to like a couple, the pen tool is super imperative to what I do, because I'm selecting pieces out, and it just lets you make really fine-tuned selections, which almost all of my pieces are a composite. And even when they're not a composite, like that one behind you right now with the trees, I've still selected those people out and basically treated it like a composite, even though they really were there. Mm-hmm. So I love the pen tool. And then my work would never ever be what it was without just the brush tool. And you know, I do a ton of essentially digital painting on top of my images and reshading and coloring and all that with the brush.
Yeah. I'm assuming you use like a Wacom tablet. You're not using a mouse. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yep. I'm actually saving up right now for one of the Cintiq monitors.
Yeah, there you go. Do it right on the screen.
Yeah, got my heart set on one of those.
I had that as a question for you. Is your monitor? Because I imagine, you know, you want a decent sized monitor and you're worried about color control too.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I have to color correct at work, so I have one of the brand new iMacs. The 27-inch iMacs and a palette monitor, and I have I don't know, you can't see it, but there's a color correct light box over here. So we'll bring in garments, you know, for clothing. If we're doing a clothing book, we shoot for a dance company all the time, and you know, we'll lay the outfit right there so I can see the color and match it to my screen and all that. So yeah, it's my monitor is constantly calibrated and super color correct, which is nice.
You know, when I look at these images, let me bring them back in so people can watch them as we're talking about them. They, you know, we know that a lot of these are not real. They're composites,
right?
But you know, they're very believable in the sense that as the person watching it, your work that you've done is really good and blended really well to where I can't say, oh, there's the line. You remember thinking back to like the old Star Trek days where you could see the string on the
like
the
if
thing.
you really look.
Yeah, that's not the case here. What do you think is the mistake? Like common mistake somebody getting into this might make? Because typically we tell people don't push things too far. Well, these images are beyond far.
Yeah.
And yet they're still really good.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the main things, especially with compositing, that is a troublesome area for people who are just starting out is the lighting and the shadows. If you don't have believable shadows, it totally throws you off. Like, especially if you have the feet in the picture, if you don't have them grounded, you can't see the shadow really well, you'll look at it. Maybe you won't notice but you'll be like, oh, that looks wrong. And, the other thing and I've talked about this in my blog before, is where is your light coming from? So if you're compositing this person into this scene and you're thinking, oh man, this is such a beautiful picture. I took at the beach of this sunset. I'm going to put that back here. But then you have light coming from up here on your subject and the sun's back here. Again, maybe you won't know why, but you'll be like, something's wrong here. Like that light doesn't make sense. The sun's behind them. What's this light up here? So yeah, lighting is a big one. And the other thing I see a lot and maybe this is just a pet peeve of mine, but copied things, not like a copy of an image, but like more than one of something in the same image. I see this a lot with birds.
Trees,
where
maybe?
Someone will be like, oh, I want to add birds to this picture. And they'll use the same bird. Maybe they'll use 2 or 3, but they'll use the same one 4 or 5 times. And my eyes are just like bird, bird, bird. Like, one of these things is like the other. And I just see this copied and pasted bird and it just pulls you right out of it. And yes, you can reuse a bird, but, maybe cut the wing off and turn it down here and flip it horizontal, whatever to differentiate it. But I see that a lot with things copied more than once in a frame. And that just pulls you out.
I don't know if I would pick up on that, but I might pick up on the lighting. And at first I probably would just see something odd, but the feet thing is something I think even the novice, if it looks like they're just kind of placed on top of there, I've seen that before. We've all seen that before.
Or even when they try and add a shadow and it's just a really fake shadow and you go, oh, that's not a real shadow.
So, probably don't have time or anything like that, but any tips on how to make the feet believable and when you place somebody in a scene? Yeah.
The easiest way, this is a bit harder at the shoot, is if you know that they're going to be on grass, if you know that they're going to be on sand. I mean, and this is talking studio wise, which is mostly what I do. Bring sand in, even if it's just a little pile where their feet are touching, then you can then blend that sand into the sand you're going to put them on. And it's way more believable.
Very good.
But the other thing I do a lot, or grass or whatever, but obviously you can't always bring in a nice square of really nice grass. Grass is a really hard one. But for like flat surfaces, if they're on a road, on, whatever it is, if you take the image and you can see their feet and that you have a nice clean ground. I shoot on a cyc, just like one of the white scooped wall, like that one in the background right now, her feet are on the ground and that was played up a lot. I painted in the shadows more, but the other thing you can do is so you have her completely cut out on her own layer. And then you take the actual, the picture of her feet on the ground. And if it's on white, you can then take that chunk where the shadow is and put it underneath there and set it to multiply in the layer blending modes, which is on like the right above your layers there. You can set it to multiply. And what that does is tell all the white pixels to go away and it only shows the black pixels. So then you can, it'll put that actual shadow from your picture on top of whatever ground you've put them on. And then there's obviously some masking and blending and, painting some extra black and darkening it where it needs to be. But starting with their actual shadow is really, really, really helpful.
Well, that's good. So I'd have to listen. I'm going to have to listen to that a couple of times
Sorry,
later on. No, that's good. That's good. We don't have time. We don't have enough time for you to teach me.
Right.
But speaking of teaching, do you do any kind of workshops or one-on-one sessions or anything like that where, that could be a revenue source if you haven't started it yet?
Yeah, I at some point would love to do a workshop. I've always loved teaching. I have recently started online Skype mentoring.
Okay.
For people pay per session, and we'll meet for like an hour, and depending on where they are and what they want, I teach to their skill level. But that's been a lot of fun. I definitely want to get into that some more. Problem with that is hard, is my life is already so crazy scheduled, and I have so much going on. I can only take on so many students at a time, and it's like I already have one for Thursday night, and I already have and like maybe some people will just want to meet once or twice. I usually do it via Skype. I actually have one coming up in person for the first time, which will be kind of fun. Okay. So yeah, that's definitely something I'm into.
Well, I imagine you can get that booked up really fast. But if anybody's wanting to find out more about those, can they go to your website and find it, or how do they contact you and ask you about that?
I guess just send me an email. I haven't put anything up on the website or anywhere. I didn't really want to blast out too much that I'm doing it and have to turn a bunch of people down. But yeah, shoot me an email. Let's figure that out.
Okay, and we'll have the link to your webpage in there, and people can go there and that's how they can get in touch with you. Yeah, is that the best way for people to get in touch with you is through the website?
Through the website, I'll go right to my email.
You touched on a little bit about the photo shoot and how you do some of that. How, when you have the concept, you probably have the end design in mind when you start this. How important is the photo shoot to that end part when you're going to spend so much time editing? But I imagine if the photo shoot itself is important too, right?
Yeah, well, I shoot one of two drastically different ways. So both of what you said, I either will have everything planned down to a T, and I know exactly what it's going to look like and how everything's going to be shaped and posed and lit. So those photo shoots, I'm very more particular about how everything's going to be shot, because I know I'm going to be doing this to it. But then there's some where I just want to shoot, like for example, the one with the ocean dress. I have a costume designer friend who had visited, and we did a shoot, and she had a few garments I wanted to use but didn't have time to when she was here. And I said, could you just leave those with me and I'll shoot them later? And she was like, sure, but I need them back by this date. Well, we were going to be returning them in a day, and I was like, oh man, I really wanted to use this dress. So I said, Sarah, can you put this on, throw your hair up in a bun, let's run downstairs, we'll just shoot something, I'll figure it out later. Yeah. So I shot that having no idea what I was going to do with it. So that edit took a zillion years, because I tried 5 or 6 different things before I landed on I'll make an ocean dress thing, which I didn't even include in the video, because I'd try something and scrap it and try something and scrap it. So, that took a lot longer, but that shoot was fairly quick, because I just threw up my sort of normal lighting setup, snapped some different poses, and called it a night.
I would imagine as you do more of the composites, and have to deal with what you shot, you then go, your composite work helps you, and I want to shoot this way. You get better at the shooting to help yourself out later on the composites.
Oh yeah. Well, my newest piece, which I just looped by a second ago, the Fate Sisters, which is with the scissors and the thread. It's one girl, but playing 3 different people. That one is one that I had super planned out, and I'd been envisioning. Yeah, that one. I've been envisioning for like a year. So I knew exactly what I wanted it to look like and how I wanted everything to be. So that came together really quickly, because I lit it very stylized. I knew that the scissors and the thread would be casting light, so I lit it to actually have that light there. So I didn't have to be painting in. I mean, and I did paint a ton on top of it, but it was already there, as opposed to having a flat face and then painting the light here and the light here and the light here. So it definitely, if you know how you're going to have your end product, you can shoot for it and make it much easier.
And if I remember right, don't you have something on your blog about the scissors?
Yeah. Oh, there's every single one of my pictures I put up, there's a blog post for. Once I started my blog, there's some before that, but for the most part, any of these pictures, there's a blog post with behind the scenes and a speed edit video and all that.
Love the speed edit videos.
Yeah, I like those. They're fun.
Those are awesome.
I have a lot of people going, can you slow them down? I'm like, well, and I'm going to have 4 or 5 hour videos even still sped up. So
yeah, I know the one we played earlier was like 5 minutes, even though as fast as it was.
Yeah, they're getting longer.
So you're doing the edit and you record while you're editing. But if you're coming and going, I guess you just, when you come and go, you just stop it and then restart it.
Yeah.
And then just bring them all in together later on.
And I'll cut chunks out. If I go way off into left field trying something and it just does not work, I'll just take that and just chop it out for time's sake. Because, I know people on the internet don't have 20 minutes to sit and watch one video. Some people want that, but most people, if they look at a video and they go, oh, this is 10 minutes long, I'm not watching this.
Yeah.
So I try and keep them short, but I also, people want to see what happens. So
that's why I put all the stuff at the tail end about subscribing and all that of our show, because people would see that in the front end and say, I'm out.
Cool. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. Come on now.
Yeah.
So do you hit save very often?
No. I probably
Wow, really?
should.
Oh my gosh.
That's one of my
that was the
flaws,
kiss of death, Mike. Great.
Yeah. That's
You living on the
those-
edge.
I'm one of those terrible people who will be saving or who will be closing and go, oh my gosh, I haven't saved in 3 hours.
Wow.
And then you're like saving and watching the percent, like, please, please, please save. Like, don't anything happen right now. So yeah, I need to be better about that. Thankfully,
I guess
Photoshop.
that's the next question we have to ask. You do back up, I assume.
Oh yeah. I
Okay.
have backups all over the place for sure.
Yeah, I had that somewhere in the show notes, Tim. I think it's way down below. Ask him if he backs up. So very good.
Yeah, thankfully at work we have a really nice archive system, so I can just sort of gently nudge it into the archive system and it gets backed up on tape.
So how many, we talked about this taking on the long end, 40 to 50 plus hours, but how many layers are we talking? Are you talking 40, 50, 200, 500? I know some of these get pretty involved.
It depends. I mean, some of them, like the flower dress picture, is obscene because that, just the picture of her is a head from this shot, a hand from this shot, whatever it was. And then this picture of flowers, this picture of flowers, and all of those layers I might want to move later. So what I end up doing is I'll piece things together to a point, and then like the background is also, that's probably 4 images, I think. Like taking picture here, picture of the ground, or maybe take that picture of the ground and stretch it. So that alone is 4 or 5 layers. So I'll get to a point where I know I don't want to change things. Like maybe once I have the dress where I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is how I want it, I'll flatten her into one piece and save as another thing. So I wind up merging things down and then having 3 or 4 files before I'm done, just so Photoshop doesn't explode, because it would be so many layers. So,
in a flower dress I have up behind me, and I think I just closed something I didn't want to close.
It went away.
Yeah, that's not what I wanted to do. What happened here? So hold on a second. Go to 2. There we go. I think I just closed the composite where I have all of us together.
Okay.
So people are only going to see us as thumbnails for the rest of the show.
Oh, well.
That's all right. But this photo here, the one that you have of the flower dress that you just talked about.
Yeah.
When I look at some of these, and there's a number of them, not just this one, but a number of them, these are ones that, I imagine there's a lot of people who would say, I want that photo of me, not me, Mike,
right.
Female.
You don't want that picture of you, Mike?
No. My figure would not work well with that dress.
Oh, well.
But some of the others, and if you're a female, you'd want that one, or maybe you like the action one with the fire and everything, whatever. But man, those are incredible. Not your typical photo that you're going to get from a portrait session with somebody. That I would love to have this big up on my wall, over the mantle or something like that.
Right.
The ones you did of the sisters. If I was that girl, I might want that in my room. Those are unique shots that you're not going to come across, somebody else's house that has that image up. This is a special shot. On the one hand, on the other hand, because you have to spend so much time in this to make this worthwhile to you, I imagine this is not going to be a $50 photo. This is going to have to be, hours times rate type thing.
I don't ever like to give a per hour rate.
Right.
Because I feel like that ruins, I don't want to be rushing or taking my, I don't want to feel like, oh, I should hurry up and finish this. It's been so many hours. This is going to get astronomical and they're going to get sticker shock by this. I'd rather go, this is how much I feel my time is worth. This is the lump price. And when I do a commission shoot, it's one picture. It's not, here's this option and this headshot and this whatever. I go, here's the concept. This is what we're doing. We work out what we want, what they want, what I would like to do with it, and see if it even fits into my portfolio. If it's something I want to do, then I'll take it on. But it's like one lump charge for the shoot, the whatever, and then we figure out a print later.
Yeah, do you have many people who want to do something like that?
Not as many as I'd like, but problem is I have people who want to do it, and I tell them how much it is, and they go, "Never mind, I don't want it that bad." But
well, I mean, it's going to have to be worth your while to do it. I mean, you're going to be sitting there for that long,
for sure. And most of the work you're showing are things that it's just a friend of mine, or it's another photographer from a meetup, and or a lot of them are me. I do a lot of self-portraits just because I'm always around. So most of it is just, I want to do this. This will be fun. But I've had a few. The one, I don't think it's in the loop, but it's a guy completely wrapped in barbed wire.
Yeah, I remember seeing that one. That one's pretty cool.
Ironically enough, my barber, and that was his idea. And he has always wanted to do this shoot, and everyone said, "No, you can't do that." And I said, "Sure, we can."
Well, that's probably because everybody else thought they were literally going to wrap him in barbed wire.
We did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
How did you keep him from? How'd you keep him from getting hurt?
Well, he
did get hurt.
He did a little, but it was his fault.
No. A little bit of blood. A
little bit.
That added to it.
Yeah. I did Photoshop on some extra pieces. There's a whole blog post about this as well, obviously. But what I did is I cut, it came on a roll. So I cut like half circles and would just sort of like gently place them around. So they weren't actually connected on the back. So it looks like it's all wrapped around when it's like one piece set here, one piece set here, and he's just standing there. So, it's not like I'm like wrapping it around and you're going to get cut that way. But then, so once we got enough on him to have like the overlapping of the arms and the different pieces and the real shadows on him, I then had him take a smaller piece and, hold it here. And then I just took that little chunk and Photoshopped it onto the main image. So he really was wrapped in some of it. And then I just added on a bunch of smaller pieces here and there, and then it has the real shadow because it was really touching him. And I even, some he would like pull it and you'd see it sort of indent his skin a little bit just to get that realism. He was really into it. He was a trooper. So it was a lot of fun.
I was trying to find it on your Flickr page, but I don't see it here. And I don't want to spend too much time looking. Oh, I love the Matrix one too. You have a Matrix one. We have the link.
That's really old.
We'll have the link to your thing here, so maybe people can find it later because I can't find it right now.
It's more towards the top, but
more toward the top.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there it is. I see it.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll keep talking. I'll bring it up here in a second.
All right.
Let's see. Hold on. There we go. So now I have it up. You won't be able to see it behind me, but I have it up so people will be able to see it here in a second.
Okay.
While you were talking, you gave me enough time to rebuild the whole shot with the three of us in it again.
Oh, great.
That was the first time I had to rebuild something during the show.
Well done.
Yeah, but I was going to say for a second I thought we were stuck.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Were we stuck? Oh, because I had the image of the flower. What do you call it? Not the flower dress. Was it the flower dress? The green one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I had that one up, but that was a discussion there I wanted to talk about was, man, I would love to have some of those photos. Got to be a lot of people out there who would love them. You just got to find the people who are willing to pay for them to do that, because that is something that would be so unique. I mentioned this earlier, it'd be so unique. The image your barber here, he's not going to walk in somebody else's house and see anything like this.
Right.
This is something, and it being him. It's just amazing.
And you walk into his barber shop and he's got a huge print right inside the door on
Absolutely.
the wall. Yeah.
You only would want this in a huge print. You're not getting a 4x6 of this.
Right. You're not getting something small. You're getting 20 by 30 or something.
Yeah. At least you want something big, maybe one for the house, one for your barbershop, wherever else you're going to have it. But this is not a 5x7 or 4x6 you put in your wallet or a little picture frame or something.
I mean, a lot of them have so much detail and like tiny things you're not even going to notice that if it isn't a big print, I feel like you lose a lot of it. And I run into this a lot where I want to have this big grand scene, but then my person is so tiny in the frame. But really, I shoot on Hasselblad, so my files are huge. So that person has all the detail of a giant picture, but they're really tiny in the thing. So unless you see it printed big, I feel like sometimes you kind of miss out. And people go, "Oh, why didn't you crop in some So,
Yeah.
What are the sizes of your images? They got to be huge.
yeah, it depends. They're all different shapes and sizes, but I mean, an image could be 40 inches across, easy. Before.
Well, I mean the file size for on your computer then.
Oh, 4 or 5 gigabytes sometimes.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're huge.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if we answered this or not, but Steven out in chat says, "What does the typical charge for one photo?" Let me rephrase that. I'm not quite sure I'm reading it right.
Yeah.
What do you typically charge for something like this? The barbershop. I don't know if you charged him, but for someone who wanted something like that, how much would you typically charge?
I mean, it depends on how intensive of an edit it is. You know, am I creating a dress out of flowers? That's going to be a lot more. But I mean, anywhere from like $1,000 to $2,000 for the shoot. For, you know, and on sometimes I'll bring in a hair and make. That's actually a makeup artist in the flower dress who's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
So I bring her in a lot to help out with makeup. And I have another picture of a different makeup artist actually as well. So yeah, I mean, it just depends on how intensive of an edit. Are we doing this crazy hairdo and all that, and you know, we just work it out. And I want to work with people. You know, I don't want people to not be able to afford something, because I mean, that is a lot. And I have such a hard time with the money thing, because for me, like, I don't have that kind of money to spend on one picture, but I also realize that I don't have that. Like, how much is my time worth?
Exactly. Well,
So
you know,
it's hard.
Most of the time we pay somebody for something that either our time is more valuable and we want somebody else to do it for us. I mean, you know, maybe you can do it, but you want somebody else to do it. Or like in this case of this, we pay you because we can't do that.
Right.
And it's that.
And there's very few people that can do it.
Right. But I know when a lot of people hear 1,000, 2,000, they go, wow, that's a lot of money. And I only get this one image. But the way I would look at it is, let's say you're going to, we've had somebody on who talking about boudoir shoots. And remember that, Tim, they ordered, they ordered like a $10,000 package or think of something like that, some crazy thing. Or you're doing a portrait.
I got to work that out.
Yeah. Or you're doing a portrait session or a senior session or something like that, and you're spending $650 or more on your senior session. And yeah, you may be getting 20, 30 photos, but what are you doing with those? You're not going to put 20 photos up in the house.
No.
Yeah.
You're going to lucky if you put up one.
Yeah. So in this case, you don't get 20 of these things, but what you end up doing, you know, think about the senior shots. You know, Scott Green did ours. Fantastic senior shots. I'm going to hire him for my other kid when he becomes a senior. But, you know, we end up sharing them on Facebook. We do a few prints. We have them up, but we don't have it in the main room on a mantle or something.
Right.
Something like this is something where we would blow it up 20 by 30 or even bigger and have it as a main piece of art in our house.
And yeah, if you go out and buy a big painting, it's going to be way more than that.
Yeah.
So it is.
I think about a painting I bought for myself upstairs. I think I paid $4,000 for it, and it's a Kincaid. Well, you know, it was something I really wanted, and
yeah,
you're right. But and maybe it's also where you live. I mean, I live in New York, where not for nothing, $1,000, $2,000 isn't total sticker shock to me. I mean, that's normal to me. But I mean, if you're living in I don't know if where you are is rural Pennsylvania, but
pretty much, we're surrounded by farm country for sure. So a lot of people would go, "Oh my gosh, no way."
Yeah, exactly, and that's the difference. Here in New York, that may not be expensive, but where you are, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think it was Rachel Brinke. I know some people listening probably remember her.
Yeah,
I don't know if you do, but she's the law tog. We've had her on the show a few times. She had a good quote. I'm not going to get the quote right, but the general thing was, I'm not trying to sell a Lexus to people who are looking for a Hyundai or a Yugo or something. I'm selling a Lexus, and it costs this much. And I think that's, your prices in my mind is not outrageous. That's
right.
And I have
given
a lot
the amount of work you
telling
do
me that I'm way underselling myself, which is probably true, but it's one of those things where I enjoy it so much that I feel guilty asking for money. It's like, I feel like I would just do this anyway. So it's like, I feel like, should I, but I got college loans to pay.
This is where you go talk to your wife before you say that you feel guilty about charging for something.
Yeah, she is listening, remember.
She can probably help you out with that. Is she the better one with money?
I mean, she's really good with math. But
okay.
we're both very good with money. She's
Okay.
she's definitely on top of, let's sit down, let's go through our budget. So I would be lost without her.
Good. You make a good team there.
Yeah.
And I got way off track on that, but I do think that these images are something that people who are in that market should be willing to pay for those things, because you're probably going to get more use out of this one image than the 20 or 30 you got from your whatever other session you had
right
out there. So,
I mean, absolutely. I mean, some of those pictures are absolutely stunning. I mean, they are works of art. It really is what they are. I mean, and you can tell the time you're putting into it.
Yeah, I mean, take a snapshot. I want to create a work of art.
Yeah. And I also think this is something for a lot of people to remember. Artists out there photographers out there who are doing what they love, but not getting instant gratification from it. So often today, we're all looking for instant gratification. And this is something I feel that someday we're going to be hearing, we're going to see Robert Cornelius in the credits of a movie, or we're going to,
I hope so.
or something.
The griptographer.
Yeah, something
yes,
there
the
that.
griptographer.
Yeah. No, he'll be on there because they use one of these composites as the movie poster or something like that.
And I really would love to get into movie poster. That's on my bucket list of. I mean, I've made a fake one for fun.
Your dog, yes.
My dog, yeah. Which that was actually funny. I was setting up the lighting for a different shoot just to test things out, and I was had a stool sitting in there to see my light hitting something. I was like, oh, this is kind of hard. So I was like, oh, Gilmore, come here. And I just plopped him in the chair, and he just sat there. And so, yeah.
I'm trying to find it. I have it.
I found it later and was like, I just had this idea and threw it together. It was actually, Gilmore, come here. Come here.
There we go. That's it behind us.
Come on. Come here.
Looks like he has some lab in him.
Yeah, there he is. He's black lab, golden retriever, border collie, something else. He's a major mutt.
Awesome. We have a black lab. Absolutely love her. She's a great dog.
Yeah. Anyway, so
while we're off track for just a second, what is he? Maybe about 10, 8, 9, 8 to 10?
It's about 5.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, he's
already starting to gray there.
Yeah, he's been like that since he was little.
Oh, okay. Because that's a trait of, and I know photographers, we're getting off track. Yeah. We'll get back. But a lot of black labs, as they get older, start to gray right around under there, somewhere in the 8 to 10-year-old range. Our dog is starting to do it now.
Yeah, he's gotten more gray, but he's always had it.
All right, and while I was off track, we got some great questions out there in chat. So from Bob, that's what it is. Bob, what keeps you motivated? I know you love Photoshop, but outside of that, what keeps you coming back?
I feel like I never have struggled with motivation just because I love to do it so much. And I always have so many pieces in my head or notes in my phone of things I want to do that I just keep going. Yeah, I've never been like, oh man, I don't know what to create. I don't know. I love it and I live for it. And as soon as one picture's done, I'm like, okay, cool. What can I do next?
Well, that's awesome. You feel that way. Because one of my questions, which Bob kind of led into, was, do you ever, sometimes when you're starting a project and this is going to take forever to do this project, you dread getting started because it's the starting of a long project. But then once you get into it, you're fine. It sounds like you can't wait for the next long project to start.
Yeah, no, I love it for sure. And honestly, I'm so behind. I have so many pictures that I've shot and haven't edited yet.
Yeah.
But I keep shooting more because I have an idea or an opportunity. And so yeah, I'm not lacking for photos to work on.
Okay, Stephen has a question, and I'll try and read it. I don't know, Stephen, if I'm going to say it right, but here it goes. Does he do anything for his workspace as far as calibration, colorless lighting so he can see accurate colors? Special glasses for looking at a screen for a long time, take break every now and then. So, yeah, that's a good question. We talked about the color calibration of the actual monitor, but I guess you got to do that in the lighting that you're going to be editing in, right?
Right. I mean, I have, just to my left, I have a light box thing that you can stick a proof into, and it's color correct light and calibrated to match the monitor. And, the printer behind me is calibrated to the computer, and that our the people who print most of the books we work on, they come in and set up the printer. So everything's all calibrated to work together. And then over to the right in my office, there's a whole color correct light booth where we can, stick a whole book up. It's kind of like when you see doctors put up an X-ray in those little strips, and so you can lay out the whole book in color correct light and, balance skin tones and all that. So.
Okay.
I was just going to ask you that. So you do all your own printing as well?
Well, we have a proofer just to check color and all that, but we don't print the actual books we work on here. They go out to a printer.
All right, but what about let's say that picture of the flower dress? Is it something you would print? Would you give the file to the person?
I actually, so far, I usually do metal prints.
Metal prints.
Wow.
Yeah, they're really, really neat. And so I'll order them, off the internet and send them to the person. Or if it's someone I trust enough or a good friend, I'll give them the file and let them just order it and have it shipped to themselves and not have to deal with the money exchange of all that. So.
Okay. And we're coming up on the hour now. I still got questions to ask, but I need to start.
Shoot. I mean, I got nowhere to be.
Well, the fact that we can't finish means I have to ask you back some other time. So it's kind of a it works out for us and hopefully it works out for you. But I did have a question on your site. In addition to all this you're doing, on your site you have these two collections. And let's see, I'll bring this up here.
Dust to Dust.
Dust to Dust and Strangers in the Park. Can you just briefly tell us what's going on there?
Sure. The first with the Dust to Dust, that actually started, a lot of my things start as an accident. It was this one day I got super inspired and was, I'm going to make a name for myself and I'm going to start a blog and I'm going to do all this stuff. And so I just ran down to the studio and I shot like 4 or 5 different portraits all at one time, of all self portraits. And one of them was the first smoke image. And that was my first picture that like the internet went, oh, this is so cool. Oh my gosh. And I was like, oh, people like this. And so that was sort of when I really was finding my voice as a photographer. So I thought, man, people really like that. And I have this outtake from this other shoot. Maybe I'll just use that. And so I did the second picture and it did just as well. And I kept coming up with more ideas of how to do this. And so I, it just became a series. And it is really fun to revisit one thing over and over and think, okay, how else can I do this? How, maybe the smoke's going in this direction. Are they rising? Are they falling? Is it, are they old? Are they young? Is it just whatever different things I could play with? It was
and you even got a child in one of them.
Yeah, that's my best friend, Veronica's youngest.
A little baby, yeah.
Yeah, I had my friend Veronica, her husband, throw him up in the air a few times for me.
Click.
He seemed okay with it.
He probably loved it.
Oh yeah, he was a little like, "What's going on?" There's flashes and everyone's but he was a trooper. And then the other one also started as an accident where I frequent Philadelphia a lot. I'm not too far from there, and Sarah, my wife, went to school there, so she has a lot of friends there. And there's a lot of days where she'll be having a girls' day and out shopping with her best friends, and I'll go, "Cool, I'm just going to wander around with my camera and see what happens." And I started going to Rittenhouse Square Park, and I took this picture, the very first one, of the old lady. And, I was kind of sneakily taking her picture, and then she noticed me and looked over, and she had this very sullen, she was just kind of very pensive and just kind of looked over, and I snapped the picture, and then she smiled and, oh, I was caught. And I kind of gave her a nod to the camera like, hey, is this okay? And so I took some more and she smiled, but I knew I was going to use that one where she, and I thought, oh, well, this will be fun. I'll try and make this look more like an oil painting and do a lot of techniques. And I made her eyeballs way bigger and her head more bulbous and played up the wrinkles and just playing with textures and painting, and thought, oh, well, that was fun. And it's so hard to approach people about photography and all that. I thought, well, it'd be a fun challenge to just walk up to strangers and go, hey, I'd like to take your picture, and different ways to ask them. And so it was a lot of fun. I think I have 5 more of those that are unedited that can be edited whenever I have time and thrown into the series. So yeah, it was just sort of an exercise in putting myself out there and talking to strangers and seeing if they'll let me do a portrait.
Yeah, well, and all these go to help you with your Photoshop skills.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
One of the things, I think I saw this in one of the videos you have on YouTube where you're replacing the sky and putting in other skies. How often do you go out and shoot just for, hey, I may want to use this guy, or I may want to use this
Not often
object?
enough.
Yeah,
I really need to. I've been made a goal in my head to go out and specifically just take pictures for textures, for landscapes, for whatever. A lot of my earlier work was much more stock heavy, where I can't always go out and shoot the ocean or whatever. So I'm going to use a stock image of the ocean, but maybe the clouds are something I took on a vacation, or so it's something I would like every image in the thing to be my own. But that's not always the case.
And how do you keep track of, if you got like 50 cloud or 100 cloud or whatever, how are you tracking those?
I have a whole folder of, it's just called textures. And in that I have clouds, birds, cracks. And I just, whenever I take more cracks pictures or more clouds, a lot of cloud images I took on one beach trip. I've been using the same images of clouds are in so many pictures, but I'll flip it and colorize it and warp it, so you can't really tell. And then every time I have the opportunity to be on a plane, I'm out the window getting all these cloud pictures for later. So
because you can't get that angle from the ground.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. The one of the lightning in my hands, that self-portrait one. Those were clouds I took on the way to Photoshop World in Vegas.
Very good. Speaking of that, you won an award, Photoshop Guru, or
two of them.
Two of them. I don't think I only have one of them here. But you won best of show winner, Guru, and best of show winner. Yeah, and then best montage. Awesome. For like compiled images. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah. When was that? That was recently? 2013? September 13. Okay. So a couple years ago. Feels like it just happened, but everything's flying by these days. All right. So of all these that you've done, do you have a favorite? Is there any one that you go, this is my favorite? I've been asked that a few times, and I've had to answer it. And my cheating get out of it answer, but it's true, is the next one. My favorite image is always the one I'm working on. And yes, I have a few that I'm like, are very near and dear to me, that I just love this picture, like the fighter flight with the fireballs. That has always been one of my favorites, because that was when I really was like, okay, I'm going to be a photographer, that like, I just want to do this. I want to be a photographer. I want people to know my name. And so I went down and I shot all these pictures. And that was the one that was, the first one where it really sort of started everything. And I still use it as my profile for like everything. So I think it's actually a profile for Skype. It's on your, it's here on your page. Twitter, your Facebook, Instagram. Yeah. That's all over the place. Yeah. Okay, good. Do you have any concepts in mind that just didn't work out when you got into it? You started working it. It just isn't working. No, I just keep working until it does. I think one of the biggest struggles I had was actually the one of my wife and I dancing on the clouds. Okay. That was actually it was after our wedding. We got married last August, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to slap back on, my suit and her dress and do a studio shoot? We have these outfits. Why let them hang out in a closet for the rest of forever? Let's crack them out and do a portrait. And one of my good friends, who is a hair and makeup artist, Kelsey Olafson, was supposed to do the hair for the wedding and then couldn't. We thought, oh, we'll come do a photo shoot, and, you can do the hair and makeup, and we'll, just have a fun time with it. And so I kind of had an idea for what I wanted to do with it. Yeah, there's the one. And, I wanted to have, I don't know if you've seen the movie Tangled, but there's a scene where there's all these floating lanterns all over the place, and it's really, really pretty. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be cool? And so I tried it, and it just was not working out. And I'm sure if I gave it a zillion more hours, I could have figured it out, but it just wasn't happening. And I think I started and completely composited that image 5 times and completely started over. Where it was like, okay, this isn't working. Let me try this. No, that's not working. Let's try like a ballroom. No, that doesn't work. Let's try, and so
that I struggled with a lot until this idea dawned on me, and I was like, oh,
Yeah, well,
this is so cheesy, but I'm gonna do it. Like it'll, and now I really love it. But that,
yeah,
I
awesome.
literally completely composited that image 5 times before I landed on this.
You guys should print this one and put it in the house.
I think we're going to. And the fun thing is the background image is actually from our honeymoon, and I took it from the top of the Eiffel Tower.
Awesome.
So, which made it even more special. And I was like,
Absolutely.
I'm really glad that I failed 5 times before I figured this out. I mean, I wish I thought of it sooner, but I'm
Since
glad
she's listening, this is your favorite.
I mean, yes, it is. I do love this picture. I'm not even kidding. It's a great one. She's in a lot of my work actually, because she's around.
Yeah. Okay. So we got another question from Stephen. Then we're going to wrap this up. But Stephen asked, and I think you mentioned this, but I'll go ahead and ask it.
I just read it. I can see it over there. That about, do I ever use stock images if I can't shoot a photo? Absolutely. And I hate doing it. I wish I didn't have to, but if it's called for and if it's going to make my picture better, and I'm usually going to edit that stock image so much that you probably wouldn't even recognize it anyway. It makes it feel more like my own.
Right.
So when I have to, I will. Like the image of the girl releasing some light up horses, releasing the messengers. Mm-hmm. That I didn't have images of baby horses, so I got a stock image of baby horses. But if you looked at the original, they didn't look like that. So I feel okay using it in my work because I've pushed it so far that it's now my own.
Right. Okay. So what's next for Robert?
That's an excellent question. I don't know. I do want to start a workshop at some point, but I know that's going to be a ton of work and a lot of pre-planning. So at some point I would like to do that.
Well, I think, for us who are admirers of your work, the what's next is the next image.
Yeah.
And what's the best place for us to see that? Is it Flickr, Facebook, your website, or your blog?
I mean, everything. I'm trying to get everyone to land back at my blog. That's my home base. But I mean, if you follow me on Facebook, whenever there's a new blog post, whenever there's a new image, there's always a new blog post, and it's, hey guys, check it out, new this. I'm talking about whatever it is, and I try and make each blog post sort of about something, and teach in some way. And it's, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm very outgoing and goofy, and I write like I talk. If I have a funny side anecdote, I'm going to put it in there because it's my space, and there's no one telling me how I have to write, so I'm going to write how I enjoy, and it's great because then I build an audience of people that I would want to talk to anyway because they're Well,
I mean, you got to be you. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And as I was doing research on Robert Cornelius, and his website is robertcorneliusphotography.com. We'll have the link. If you're spelling challenged like me, you'll need the link. We'll have the link in the show notes. Robert's pretty easy.
Yeah, I think that's the easy part.
But I was doing some research on you.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
I bet you don't.
Are you going to say about the Robert Cornelius who took the first selfie?
Yes.
I get once a month, once a week, someone, oh my gosh, have you seen this? And it's like, no, I've never Googled my own name before. Of course, I've seen this.
The very first selfie was taken by Robert Cornelius.
I actually am in the process of, there's what is it? The Hungry, I'm trying to think. I'm blanking on the name now. I feel terrible. I'm working with a woman, a food blogger who also does the Hungry Genealogist, who is researching to see if I am in fact related to the famed selfie pioneer Robert Cornelius.
That would be awesome.
So I'm hoping. I think it'd be really cool. And it was in Philly, so Philadelphia.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
my family's on the East Coast, so it wouldn't be impossible, but I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, so you guessed it. I guess that since I found it like in the first page of your name, I
still curse him because he's getting more traffic than I do, and he's been dead for years.
But here he is, your same name, and he's famous for something in photography. Yeah,
well, it was funny. I actually, I think it was for a magazine, at some interview at some point, someone said, well, clearly your name is just a clever pen name from this famous photographer. What would you tell us your real name? It's like, that is my name. Yeah.
Well, Robert, thank you for coming tonight, and that's a great story to end on. I'm looking at my questions, and I can see where Tim has filled in the blanks and not filled in the blanks, and I got a number of them left, but I want to leave those for someday when we have you back on the show.
Absolutely, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah, because not that we could sit here for 40 hours and watch you edit one of these, but what I would say is people go out to YouTube where you have some sped up. They're like, I think, double time basically.
Yeah,
is twice as fast as what it really took them. So
probably more, honestly.
Probably a little bit more than that.
Yeah, they're pretty quick.
But that, and then you do a blog post where you talk about these, so people can go to your blog site and see these things, and go to your Facebook page. We have all the links and show notes, so if you want to come and follow those later on. And let's see, I'm going to do my closing here. This is where everybody's going to probably go ahead and leave, but I get this in a recorded version, so you don't have a choice.
Right.
But if you want to subscribe to the show, the best way to get Robert as soon as it comes out is usually YouTube. That's the first place I put it. But if you're an audio subscriber, and if you're an audio subscriber, you didn't get to see the images we're talking about. We talked about these things, but you didn't get to see them because you're audio, and I get a lot of my podcast audio too, so I understand. So go to the blog post, follow his links, and go to look at his site and look at all these images where you can see them in their full glory. But if you are wanting to subscribe audio, we are on Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and Podomatic. If you want to get the video version of this, we're, of course, on YouTube. We're on iTunes twice. We have a video large, video small. So if you're getting it on your phone, you probably only need the video small. If you're getting it on your PC, you may want the video large. And then we're also on TiVo, which is video large. So if you want to watch this on your big screen TV, you can do that there. But of course, I mentioned YouTube. That's where you can get the show. Probably the quickest is YouTube's where we release it first. Subscribe to that. If you are not a member of a Facebook group, this month we're doing a theme. We're doing the theme challenge is eyes. Next month, though, we're not going to have a theme. We normally have a theme every month of the year, except for December, where we have an open in your best one of the year. We're going to start doing something every now and then where we don't have a set standard, but at least for April, we may try this again if it's popular, where it's just any image taken during the month. So instead of a photo challenge, it's a photo contest where you can, if you're a member of our Facebook group, you'll see it there. If you don't want to join our Facebook group, you can submit your photos through our website. We'll have a link there where you can come in and do that. And then, of course, we'd love for you to come out to our forums, which is jpegtheraw.com/forums. That's where Gary, who made his first live show tonight, where he and I connected, he joined our forums. Thanks, Gary, for coming out to the live show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I don't know Bob, so I don't remember Bob coming before. We thank you for coming out. And then our regulars, Barry, Stephen, and I know Nikki and a few others were out there earlier. Thank you guys for coming. If to support the show, we don't take donations. We don't do anything like that. But we do have an Amazon link where if you're going to buy something from Amazon, just use our link, jpegtheraw.com/Amazon. We'll get a small credit. If you can't remember that link, it's not that hard, but if you can't remember it, come to JPEG to Raw. At the top of the page, there's a link that says Amazon, and then there's another one that says Topaz Labs. If you're going to buy something from them, we get a small credit. And then we use that money to give back to our listeners and our viewers through giveaways, like we're going to do with this 1-year prepaid subscription to...
She still got that?
Photography plan. And I know how I'm going to give it away, Tim.
Finally.
We had this for our
best of the year.
The best of the year thing. But the winner had a choice, this or a $100 Amazon gift card, and they chose the Amazon gift card. So we still have this to give away. So I just need to set it all up. The way you're going to be able to register for that is still coming, but it's coming soon. And I'd like to also thank Aaron Schutt, who hooked us up with Jeff Trotman and got us our audio that we have a little bit on the beginning and a little bit on the end in our recorded version to give us a little bit of sound there. So if you are not a member of our Facebook group, come out there and join. We'd love to have you. Until next week, keep it raw. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.